God.
Are you okay? If you want to sit round to that corner? You're right. Yeah, you can stand up now. There you are. Okay. There you are, you can stand up now.
There we are.
To do it. He came down with quite a bright light because he'd be working down here, and he put his light in that corner. At that time there was a bit of a drainage channel dug along here, so he was able to foot his ladder in there, and up he went to work on the wall, just making some holes with the pipes and so on. He said sometime before lunch he was aware of a strange sound, something musical, a bit like a trumpet, but he didn't really think much of it. He thought it must be upstairs, and he just carried on working. But then he heard this noise again. It was a lot louder, a lot longer. But again he thought, it's got to be upstairs, maybe someone's put a radio on. Again he ignored it. But then he heard it for a third time, and this time it was really loud. It wasn't stopping, it was just getting louder and louder. And he was absolutely convinced it was in this room. He looked all around him. Of course there's nobody down here. But as he looked down to his right, just about level with his knees, he said he could see what he could only describe as the head of a Roman soldier coming out of this wall, blowing an old trumpet. Well, you can imagine he was absolutely terrified. In fact, he fell off his ladder, he crawled into that corner, he sat with his back against the wall, and he watched as this thing moved out of the wall and started to cross the cellar. Now, to begin with, he could only sit from the knees up until it walked through this trench. Then he could see feet, leather sandals, garters. He said the soldier looked rather weary. It was plodding, it wasn't marching. And as he watched, it just plodded across the cellar and started to go out of that wall. But as it did so, out of this wall came a black horse, sitting on the back of it, another Roman soldier, and again the hooves were only visible as it passed through the trench. The horse moved out, more soldiers appeared, and they just kept coming. In the end, Harry reckons he counted over 20 soldiers crossing this cellar. So stuck in his corner, of course, he had a chance to study them. He said they all looked like the first one, rather weary and bedraggled. They were grubby, unshaven, plodding along, looking very shabby, wearing faded green tunics, skirts made of leather straps, mostly carrying short swords on the right-hand side, which we now know would be typically Roman. Some of them were carrying spears. Unfortunately, none of them were carrying any sort of standard or banner that might have identified who they were. The only shiny bit of their uniform were their metal helmets with the feathers at the back. But the thing Harry said frightened him the most about these soldiers, these were not grey, foggy, misty figures you'd sort of imagine. He said it was more like that wall had disappeared and these very solid people were walking out of it. So of course he was stuck in his corner thinking, well, if I can see them, they're going to see me. So he was pretty scared. But they didn't appear to notice him, they just kept plodding across the cellar and going out of the wall. Eventually the music faded away. The last of the soldiers went through the wall. Harry sensed he was alone again. So of course he shot out of the cellar, he ran upstairs, ran into the house, blurted out what he'd just experienced. He looked a bit pale and frightened. Unfortunately for Harry, he'd run into a house full of workmen, builders, plumbers, and they just thought this was hysterically funny. They did not take him seriously, they teased him, they made fun of him. The only person who took note was the curator. So of course Harry was so embarrassed, you know, as 18-year-old teenager, everyone making fun of him. He just thought, well, I'm never mentioning that again. But he also decided he wasn't going near any more cellars. So he left the industry. By the early 60s, Harry was a policeman in York, where he remained until he retired. So Harry was working in York in 1969, when they made all those discoveries under the Minster. And one of the discoveries they made was that the Via Decumana, one of the major Roman roads, runs away from York Minster and right underneath this end of Treasures. They came down here, they did the archaeology to prove it. So of course Harry heard about that and he thought, well, if there's a Roman road under the cellar, maybe there was something to what he'd seen. So that's when he talked about it publicly, and since then it's become very famous, people have been intrigued by it. Obviously at the time people were sceptical, so Harry was asked to come down here